Viewers, welcome to another edition of Essential Inspirational Highlights. My listeners, it seems that everywhere you look, someone is struggling with something. On this evening, it is my desire to give you a word that will motivate you to press on and not be disturbed with your circumstances. The scripture lesson text will be coming from Mark, the 5th chapter, verses 25 through 34. And it states, and a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years and had suffered many things of many physicians and had spent all that she had and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. Verse 28. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus immediately, knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? In 31 to 34. And his disciples said unto him, thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith have made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. And the topic for this evening is don't give up. And this is part of a healing series. And repeat that topic again. Don't give up. My listeners, this lesson with the lady of the issue of blood can also be found in St. Luke, the 8th chapter, verses 43 through 48, and Matthew, the 9th chapter, verses 20 through 22. So to understand the full story, it's important to read all three Gospels, Mark, Luke, and Matthew. Each writer shared the same story with different details and their perspectives. In all three Gospels, the lady's name is not mentioned. What is clear, however, is that this woman had some type of blood disorder for 12 years. She spent all her monies going to countless physicians for this condition. Rather than getting better, the lady's condition grew worse. The physicians could not find a cure for this blood disorder. This lady was desperate for help. My listeners, 12 years is a long time to endure pain. And what made matters worse is that the Jewish laws, according to Leviticus, the 15th chapter, verses 25 through 27, stated that when a woman had an excessive blood flow, she was considered ceremonially unclean. If the lady touched any furniture, it would be unclean. The law also stated that if other people touched anything that the lady touched, they would be unclean too. So, my listeners, this poor lady essentially was living alone. Who would want to? Nobody. So basically, she was an outcast. Because of the lady's condition, she could not mingle and have fun with her family and friends. Also, she could not attend any religious services. Life had to be miserable for this poor lady to be shut inside her house for 12 years with no physical contact with the public. Rather than feeling sorry for herself, having a pity party, and going into a deep depression, this lady was not taking no for an answer. Even though she was flat broke and still sick with this blood disorder, she would not give up. My listeners, this lady heard that Jesus was in the city. What more could she lose? She heard about the countless miracles of the other people getting healed. This lady was probably saying to herself, now if Jesus heal all these diseases, my healing. This lady put her faith in action. So, my listeners, what did this woman do? Thank you for asking. This lady ignored the Jewish laws, risked her life, and jeopardized the life of others by going out into the large crowds of people to touch the hem of Jesus' garments. Before she left home, goal was to touch the hem of Jesus' garments. She had enough faith that if she could just touch the hem of his garment, that she would be healed. If the people in the crowds would have known who this lady was, it would have been a big fiasco because everyone would have been ceremonially unclean. The woman did not want to be noticed because of her condition. When the woman pressed through the crowds to touch the hem of Jesus' garments, the lady immediately knew that she was healed. Her blood dried up. Jesus felt the healing virtue flow from his body. Even though there were crowds of people pressing on Jesus, there was a difference between the touch of the lady. The disciples even implied that being with this big crowd of people, feeling a touch would be expected. Jesus said, I felt a virtue coming out of my body. My listeners, can you imagine the look on the lady's face? She could no longer hide. My listeners, she was trying to be secretive, However, this woman was able to share her testimony of her past and the goodness of Jesus Christ for her healing. Jesus was amazed at her faith and the extent she went for her blessing. Jesus told her because of her faith, she was healed. Now, this lady did not have to stay cooped up in her house anymore. She could attend church services and be out in the public. She was no longer unceremonially unclean. I'm sorry, she was no longer ceremonially unclean. So, my listeners, what can we learn from the lady with the issue of blood? Action. Believe the impossible. Don't place any limits on Jesus Christ. There is nothing too hard for Jesus. If he can heal a blood condition that existed 12 years with no success from the physicians, he can heal your body too. Share your testimony of what Jesus Christ has done for you, so you will be an encouragement to others. My listeners, Jesus Christ is a healer. Mm-hmm. In the healing business. It's in the word. Psalm 107:20 states, he sent his word and healed them and delivered them from their destructions. Thank you, my viewers, for tuning in to Essential Inspirational Highlights. I am your host, Sister Janie. I will be back in 2 weeks on Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Have a good evening.